Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Dr. Cavil's inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Yeah, we're gonna teach a lesson. As you see, I'm on the road. CSRI, the College Sports Research Institute. Charles is down here as a doctoral student. Charles, AD, Drew, Charles really shined today, man. He had a presentation, got up there.
So besides like the light on
about. Yes.
So it wasn't a light on the head and a little oil on the head that made him shine. It was actually the knowledge coming out their head. Then.
Hey, the light bulb, the knowledge.
I'm from the Charles F. Moore School of Business. What we do is present. And I'm also from Texas Southern University. So I got both of those good things rolling for me. So no problem whatsoever.
and then of course, don't forget you from the HBCU Sports Lab. So that's where you got your training from. That's
right. I'm supposed to shine in when you have days like today. That's when I'm supposed to come through.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. So we'll get into it. Celebration Bowl, that's de-escalation of commitment theory from a governance perspective. Then we had one on the prime effect, and we looked at the different effects that were attributed to, in part, his movement at Jackson State. So that was interesting, and a lot of dialogue that came out of that great session. With that being said, welcome to episode 376. As this is Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports. From institutions large and small, from the NAIA to the NCAA, we share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics, to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. We call it just HBCU sports pedagogy for short. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is still out on assignment. He's text here and there, but I'm not sure quite where he is or what he's doing. But he said it's real important, so I'm going to let him make it. With that being said, we do have AD Drew in the building, always ready to come in as he has moved to assistant professor tenure track. Oh, man, big time. Have to get you to some of these conferences as well, Drew. We're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to KCOH's 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, multi-Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. As I am on the road, actually, in Columbia, South Carolina. We were on the campus of University of South Carolina for CSRI, the College Sports Research Institute. Great sessions as we've been here since yesterday. We leave out tomorrow. We'll have an event that we will get to after this to check out some things and kind of close out stuff. But people were impressed in terms of what we brought to the table. We take special important notice of doing research on HBCUs from different perspectives. So people seem to always be interested in what we bring to the table. And as I said, Charles shined. With that being said, Charles, how are you doing today?
Doing well, Dr. Bill. Like you said, here at the College Sports Research Institute here in Columbia, South Carolina. It's been a tremendous experience in terms of the networking with a lot of the bright minds in the sports management field. We got a sneak preview of the upcoming movie Air, detailing, how the courting, if you will, of Michael Jordan to Nike. So I thought that was tremendous, and just fellowshipping, like I said, with a lot of tremendous bright minds within these emerging storylines around sports management around the country.
Great point. I'm glad that you spoke about the, as we got a sneak peek, if you would, about Air. Ended up being pretty dynamic in regard. Viola did her thing, acting as mom, just stood out and she brought it home like she seems always. Certainly could understand why he wanted her to play the mom, and she played it. I'm sure he's happy about when he gets a chance to see that if he hasn't not.
And it's a great story. Great story on Sonny Vaccaro. The last time I was here at CSR, Sonny Vaccaro spoke. So just getting that background information in terms of all that he's done for athletes' rights, and especially in regards to just retelling that story of how Michael Jordan came to Nike and how they literally changed the game. That was tremendous to look at and see.
You're right. Great. Another great point as you put in there. And a lot of this conference speaks to athletes' rights. So I think it's appropriate to ask Drew how he's doing. And then we'll let him get into some of his news today with the new news about transfer policy for NCAA that we kind of did coming into the show. And Charles like, that sucks. Hey, he's already been brainwashed. We got it. We got it. Drew, how you doing today?
Doing fine, my brother. Just doing fine. I
see you got your Rattler shirt saying, usually you come in here, you got your BCSN, or you might, have SportsWrap gear on. But I see you represent a little bit.
Yeah. Obviously, last week lost a colleague of ours, Kofi Hemingway, and ever since then, I've been wearing Rattler gear. Got a bunch of it in the closet. I don't pull it out all that often because when I come on shows like this or even on our own show, I try to remain neutral as far as HBCU. Pro HBCU, not to kind of single out a particular school, but right now I'm, kind of on the orange and green in honor of Kofi, who touched so many of our lives, and there will be a memorial ceremony a week from Saturday in Tallahassee, and I do plan on making that drive back to Tallahassee to pay my respects to the family and to some of those who we touched in orange and green. So I'll be in my orange and green for the next few shows until we get this all settled.
Yeah, it's been tough and very appropriate. So I'm glad that you got a chance to speak out that and give some updated information in terms of Kofi. We had our moment of silence and had a chance to share some news with him. But
and please go back and watch yesterday. I'm sorry, Doc. Please go back and watch yesterday's ONG Strike Zone show. It was powerful. It was tremendous. I'm just happy that I had to produce this show. I when it came up, it was like, all right, I'm going to produce this show. I'm not going to let anybody else produce this show on that particular day. Kelvin, Brian, and Marcus did a tremendous job. We had about 7 guests. Off script came on. Scotty off script. Willie Simmons came on. I mean, just a vast amount of people who he has touched throughout not only his HBCU life, but his personal life came on the show and did it. And if you go watch you got to go to the last 25 minutes for the tribute. We didn't close the show out like we normally do with the outro. The last 25 minutes was nothing but a Kofi tribute. And if you don't do anything else, you don't have time to watch the full 2.5 hours. Take time to watch the last 25 minutes.
Appreciate that. I was saying in terms of the tribute, unfortunately, we've lost a couple of folks in regards to Kofi. Others, we just also had the moment of silence for Grambling great. We had a Prairie View great that we lost over the week. And so, Charles, I know you wanted to add some thoughts on that. You weren't on the previous show when we talked about those greats. You did get a chance on Tuesday to talk about Grambling.
Yeah, like you mentioned, we lost Willis Reed, but we lost another legend in Otis Taylor. And I can't thank Ralph Cooper enough for promoting Otis Taylor. I mean, Otis Taylor is an individual who was way ahead of his time in terms of being one of the most dominant receivers in the NFL. And through listening to Ralph, through my own watching of NFL films, but listening to Ralph talk about Otis Taylor, especially in terms of his dominance at Worthing High School in Houston, his dominance at Prairie View, and then the numerous stories in terms of how he got to the Kansas City Chiefs. He's almost made Otis Taylor this mythical figure. So it is a tremendous loss when you talk about one of these greats, especially one of these greats that played in the late 50s and in the 60s and was part of this Kansas City Chief Super Bowl championship that, I just have tremendous admiration for the game that was Otis Taylor.
Thank you for that. Back to you, Drew. NCAA, I know they came out with the transfer. Let me know your thoughts on some of the things that stuck out to you that I think the listeners want to hear more about, even though we started that a little bit of pre-show.
Yeah. If you haven't been paying attention, NCAA has come out with new legislation on the transfer portal and the usage of the transfer portal. Now, you still, i.e., get your one freebie. But the second one is the second transfer, which a lot of athletes are using two transfers, is whether the changes are coming. What can you do? How can you transfer the second time?
I was already shaking his head. Go ahead. Name 2 or 3 of them.
They're actually 2 or 3. There are only 3, Dr. Cavil. Reasons related to student athlete physical or mental health and well-being. I can go for that one. Due to extenuating circumstances outside the student athlete's control, i.e., physical or sexual assault, discrimination based on a protected class, assertions involving diagnosed education impacting disabilities. So basically, if you have an IEP or something along those lines that they're not able to accommodate you. That's it. That's how you get your second freebie.
Yeah, so transferring because you didn't get playing time, or transferring because your coach left after the second time.
You get one freebie.
That's the reason why I'm trying to transfer, because I ain't getting the playing time that I want. And if my coach leave, I still want to leave. So no, free the athlete.
I'm gonna ask y'all, Dr. Cavil.
Hold on, AD. Hashtag free the athlete.
Free the athlete, man. Free the athlete.
Started. But Dr. Cavil, academic reason. And this is so disrespectful. The pre-program does not meet expectations. No. Perceived prestige of institution's degree program does not meet expectations. No. Transfer to change major. No. You can't transfer for any of those reasons. Charles, I'm going to give you the athletic reasons that they say no. Lack of change of participation. No opportunity to play. Reduction in playing time. Change in position or role on the team. Change to athletic scholarship and coaching change. Change to athletic scholarship is the one that gets me though.
Exactly. I can reduce
my scholarship.
But I feel
now I can't leave.
I.e., cut my money and I can't go. Are you crazy?
See?
You crazy?
See, they done overcorrected now. See,
of those, that's the one you got to at least put that one back in. If they cut my money, freebie. That's like taking a pay cut at work and then telling me you can't turn in your 2-week notice. Okay. No, it's this. I ain't gonna be here. I'm gonna find me somebody else that's gonna pay me my work.
And see what gets me? We get into these tired tropes of these kids, they don't want to work hard, yada 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 yada. But at the first chance a coach gets, if he gets an opportunity, he can go. So I mean, free the athlete. A lot of athletes will be able to go where he wants to go to get the playing time or whatever the case might be, or whatever the reason is. Allow him to leave, re-recruit.
And if you lose 2 coaches within your 4 to 5 years on that particular campus, that's something else going on your campus besides W's and L's. There's a culture thing that's going on in your campus if you're turning over coaches that often. And I'll say that.
Yeah, great point. Charles, let me go to you. Any news HBCU wise that you want to get out there? Or anything that stood out with you in terms of CSRI, either direction you want to go?
Oh, no doubt. Let's take a look at some SWAC news, and we'll take out a little bit off the beaten path. We'll take a look at bowling. Southwestern Athletic Conference is slated to host the 2023 SWAC Women's Bowling Tournament March 24th through the 26th, which is this weekend at the International Bowling Training and Research Center located in Arlington, Texas. The 3-day event features the league's top 6 teams at the conclusion of regular season play. So the top seeds, 2023 regular season champion, of course, was the Southern Jaguars at a 20-8 record. But Alabama State claimed the number 2 seed, while Prairie View claimed the number 3 seed. Texas Southern is the number 4 seed. And FAMU and Jackson State rounded out. They claimed the final 2 tournament bids and will enter the tournament as the number 5 and 6 seeds, respectively. So, in terms of bowling, a lot of us are bowlers in our spare time. So the bowling championship is this weekend in Arlington, Texas.
Hey, Charles golf, he bowled. Man, what you doing?
Hey, I gotta get fishing in now. I got professional man of leisure. That's what I'm attempting for.
Let me go back to you, Drew. Any last news, HBCU news you want to get out there? That's piquing your interest right now?
So we went from
Nope.
Come on, him.
As I would like to call it.
Exactly.
Nah, Doc. I'm gonna reserve mine because I want to make sure that I leave us with enough time because you just come out with these final HBCU basketball polls on the Division II level. So I want to make sure that I have time to adequately break down these polls and see if your posters were taking notes last week when I gave my lecture. And if not, Doc, I need you to grade them accordingly when they put this poll in. See if they was taking good notes when I was talking last week.
I love it. I love it. With that being said, we're going to get into our first break. We'll come back on the other side. Just as Drew said, we have our final mid-major top 5 rankings. We'll start with the women. We'll give you some of the men as well later on in the show. But we'll come back on the other side and see what these two gentlemen think about the final. This is the final. Top 5, Dr. Cavill's inside the HBCU Sports Lab, women's and men mid-major rankings. We'll start with the women's. We'll be right back after this first break.
Nope.
Come on, him.
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up messes quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
Now, you can live in Texas and not have a good red meat blend. Texas Cowboy Dust is designed for steak and other red meats. It's out to be my most popular spice blend, made with onions, peppers, ground mushrooms, pink salt, and other spices. Texas Cowboy Dust also goes great with chicken, pork, vegetables, and adds a restaurant quality sheen to gravies and sauces.
It's like a loot machine. All around town, people trying to get down.
Vanilla smoked sea salt seasoning is for seafood. The tarragon and fennel bring out the natural sweetness in seafood. I also use it in rice dishes, on yams, asparagus, blueberry pancakes, and believe it or not, chocolate chip cookies. Vanilla smoked sea salt adds a salty and savory component to sweet dishes that create a symphony for the tongue.
When you're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics, there's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com. www.slowburnwaco.com.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want a lot, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavill's inside the HBCU Sports Lab, where we're here with the professors, Drew, Professor Bishop. We're going to get into the mid-major women's top 5, get into it. Before we do that, I do want to give a shout out to the lab listeners in here, giving us some love. Sarah Beverly, Chuck Hunt, Silas, Edward McMorris, Mary Allen is in the building, Theron Waters, G. Boom Holly, Jerome Jeep Sutton, Ricky Burton, Carl Edmond, Lawrence D. White. Shout out for all the love. Appreciate the love. With that being said, let's get into the mid-major top 5 rankings. We'll start with those teams dropping out this week. We don't have any team dropping out. Things pretty much stayed the same last week. We'll get into some of those receiving votes in this final week, which was West Virginia State Yellow Jackets, finishing up the season at 22-7, 17-5 in terms of the conference race. Fayetteville State, the Broncos are behind the Yellow Jackets, sitting at 18-7, 14-2 as they finish the conference race out of the CIAA. And then we have another CIAA program that got into the level of receiving votes, which was Lincoln Lions, sitting at 19-9, 12-4. I know, according to Drew, we need to have Miles in there, and they were on that bottom line in terms of receiving votes. I just didn't put up the point level there, but they would be sitting in that 4th position, or what we would say basically in 9th slot if we did 10 of the top 10s, but they are in that receiving votes. Let's get into top 5 and see what is looking like as we count down to see who finishes on top in the final week ranking. This was week 11 in terms of what we did the work. At number 5, Elizabeth City State out of the CIAA closed out the season at 19-11, 14-2, 16 points, and they remain at number 5 if they close out the end of the season race there. At number 4, you have Philander Smith Panthers, 23-7, 17-5. They found a way to stay in the top 4. After all the great dialogue y'all had last week, you could not convince the folks to change around. A little different in the total points there, but not enough to knock them out. Not even the top 5. They actually hold the 4th spot. It'll be interesting to see y'all final thoughts on that. At number 3, as we continue to move up, Florida Memorial Lions, 24-6, 15-1, 46-3. They remain at their 3 spot. It looks like things are just chugging away and staying like they were. No real changes here thus far. At number 2, we have none other than the Russ Bearcats, sitting at 21-6, 12-2, 48 points. Close out the season at number 2. Fantastic year for the Bearcats, getting it done for women's basketball at NIA level. And you see a gluttony of the NIA programs in the poll rankings. So a great season for NIA programs in general. Gulf Coast Athletic Conference is represented well when you look at the top 5 at this point. But with all that being said, who is at number 1? Who is the queen at the top, since we're talking about the women at the top of that field? Tuskegee Golden Tigers close it out, 26-4, 19-0. They had that great season, all 6 first-place votes. They remained at the top for the last part of the season and would not let it go. 60 points, number 1 poll rankings. That's what we have this week. Charles, what do you say about the poll rankings in the final week? That means that Tuskegee Golden Tigers earned Dr. Cavill's 2023 HBCU Mid-Major Division Women's Championship in terms of what we do with our poll rankings.
Yeah, first and foremost, congratulations to Tuskegee. AD, you and I got an opportunity to sit down and watch them play. Tremendous basketball team. I really just enjoyed that rivalry with Tuskegee and Miles. I can't say enough about that, but a well-coached basketball team, rebound, score, defend, 19-0. Their record speaks for themselves. But the thing that jumps out for me is just banner year for the NAIA, for the NAIA programs. That really sticks out with them really representing in the top 5. what jumped out for me is just there was no CIAA team except for Elizabeth City. That would be in the only one there in the top 5. So kudos to the NAIA teams. They really, really played some tremendous basketball this past season.
Before we get into that, Drew, I want to ask you that before you get into your take of the top 5. Charles kind of put something out there in terms of CIAA, SIAC. What are your thoughts, even though they get in the top 5, if you start looking at those receiving votes, would you say that the CIAA on the women's side, I think it's convincingly on the men's side, people thought the CIAA was a little top heavy in terms of in the depth they had, those quality teams, versus the SIAC, top team, you could probably go head to head, but maybe a little different on the women's side. Would you say that CIAA, SIAC was on par with each other in terms of the depth from the women's side? As Charles alludes, maybe he would like to see CIAA represented a little higher, or do you say no, it's appropriate? SIAC did what was necessary?
And I'm going to try to take my SIAC bias out of this. But if you look back over, say, the last 3 years or so, Charles, you look at those Benedict teams from like 2020 when Ayana Bay was on those. You look at Savannah State last year. You look at Tuskegee this year, and when you go back and look at it, those 3 teams particularly are not one-hit wonders. All three of these years that I mentioned, all 3 of those teams were good. It was just somebody had to win, somebody had to lose each of those particular years. But those particular schools are building a program, and Miles now is an up-and-coming program there in the SIAC. When you go back and look over it, Lincoln has been a tremendous team in the CIAA over the last 3 years.
What happened to my perennial team, the Virginia Union? Where are they at?
Yeah, on the women's, on the women's side, that's the question. That's the question, Charles. I mean, you've had Lincoln, you've had Fayetteville, but other than that, you've had teams like in Elizabeth City who catch lightning in a bottle in a particular year and get into the mix. That's what you've had in the CIAA. So while the SIAC has had a core 3 or 4 teams that have been good over the past 3, 4, 5 years, the CIAA has had one or 2 perennial powers, and then somebody catches lightning in the bottle. So I hope that kind of answers your question, Charles. Right now, I would say if you had to go conference versus conference, you would have to give a slight edge to the SIAC right now, today in 2023. Now, we'll see how that works in 2024. But I would say for the last 3 years, you would definitely have to favor the SIAC.
Yeah. And you make this clear because Stephen Gates is going to come back in the audit. We're talking about the women's side. Not the men.
Talk about the women.
We'll
on the women's side.
Later and maybe have a different dialogue there. But I wanted to make sure we were specifically letting folks know we're reference to women. And I'm with you. With that being said, Drew, what are your thoughts on the top 5?
Honestly, Doc, I really was trying to find some way to pick apart this particular poll, and there's really nothing there because when you look at the top 5, your top 5 teams, the top 3 teams were all conference champions. You can't argue with that. You can't even argue the order of it. You might be able to make a slight argument Florida Memorial over Russ in the marathon, but for the sprint, Russ had a better sprint than Florida Memorial. And if you go with your recency bias, it's going to put Russ over Florida Memorial just because of that. For Landon Smith, Elizabeth City, you got a conference runner-up over a conference champion. But if you take the marathon portion of it, Philander Smith had a better overall season. They just ran into this gauntlet called the Rusk College Bearcats.
Exactly.
Elizabeth City called lightning in a bottle and still didn't get to 20 wins. So I can't argue with that one either. You had West Virginia State who made it to the tournament, but and also all 6 of those teams that I've mentioned made it to their respective national tournaments. When you add West Virginia State in, who's your top team in the receiving votes, so you can't argue with it there. Fayetteville, regular season champion, one of those things we were just talking about. Lincoln, PA, that other perennial power that we was talking about, right there in the poll. You know my only beef, Dr. Cavil.
Yep.
That team in Fairfield, Alabama, should be represented on here. That's the only beef that I have with this poll. I have no beef with the order or anything else, Doc.
I think I will update that, and just so the records will reflect that final poll, I will add Miles in there. They did have the points; they were there. I just did not put them on the paper, and I think you make a convincing point. You must be in there with Charles this week. We got to bring it all right. You get a little bit of the bug in terms of how you do your analysis. I like that.
Woo, this is going to be fun with Tuskegee and Miles coming up for the next couple of years. Let's see how they can sustain this. This is fun.
Which sport we talking about though, Charles?
I know exactly.
They at the top. They at the top of multiple sports.
Exactly. That is
pretty good. Well, let's get into our second break. We'll be back on the other side, and we'll come talk a little bit about the men's top 5 and see if we have everybody on the same page. Great points made by both Professor Bishop, Professor Drew. Stick with us. We'll be right back after our second break. We'll come back on the other side, give you the men's mid-major final poll ranking.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
From novice to aficionado.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want a lot, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill inside HBCU Sports Lab with the professors. Let's get into the mid-major division for the men. Again, this week, nobody dropped out, so everything stood the test of time. We'll see if there were any changes. A lot more teams receiving votes on the men's side. Miles Golden Bears, 23-7, 15-5. Philander Smith Panthers, solid season with the men, 22-7. Tuskegee Golden Tigers, 20-9 in terms of their overall record. Claflin Panthers, 19-6. West Virginia State Yellow Jackets are 20-8. Think about that, man. You have literally 4 of the 5 receiving votes that had 20 wins. So it'd be interesting to see
That's
what
strong.
it looks like in terms of the top 5 programs to get in there. You got to put up some wins to get in these top 5. That's one thing I like about it when you shrink it down. It gets interesting and gets nice. With that being said, we have some mean dialogue on this week. This week we have Xavier Gold Rush, 23-9, 14-6, 42. Finished 5 in terms of being in the top 5. Coming out of the Red River Athletic Conference.
And I am laughing at you, Charles, not with you.
23-9, 14-6. Get into the NIA, win the tournament game. They get it done. At number 4, Winston-Salem State, 20-9, 9-7, 56 points. Previous ranked 4. Winston-Salem State Rams are in the top 5 rankings and ended at number 4. Remember, they won the tournament to the CIAA, got into the NCAA Division II, lost their first game there. Bringing us to number 3, Virginia Union Panthers, 24-8, 12-4, lost in the semifinals to that Winston-Salem State Rams team, but they get the bid because of their overall play, and they actually win a game. One of the few teams that won a couple of games in their tournament at the Division II level specifically. Virginia Union Panthers do it as a HBCU 24-8, 12-4 coming out of CIAA, 57 points. So you see 2 CIAA teams in there. Getting us to number 2, Langston Lions, 31-3, 20-2, 3 first place votes, 76, 2 first place votes. This is one I'm going to toot my horn a little bit. We've had Langston number 2 sitting in that spot for a while. A lot of folks felt that Langston should have been maybe number 1 the last couple of weeks. As it would be said, if you're going to use the tournament as the measuring stick, we know it's different matchups and things of that. 30 wins plus speaks enough for Langston, particularly when you talk about the tournament round. Nothing to shake the head about. A couple of weeks ago, Coach got on the show with Brian and AD, did a great job in terms of the interview there. We had Smothers on, and we'll talk about that. Struthers, I should say, in terms of Coach. So between our shows, we got a chance to make sure that these NIA programs, Division II programs, and coaches get some shine. So I wanted to shout you out for that, AD, Drew, and Brian. Charles, for always getting the work, reaching out to coaches, getting it done. That's important. But with all that being said, Langston Lions had 3 first-place votes. A little closer than people expected, but we told everybody for a long time, keep your eyes on the Tougaloo Bulldogs. They went the furthest in the NIA tournament. They actually make it to the final 8. Langston, really good. They went to the 16. We told you that Xavier even got a round in the tournament, but Tougaloo gets it done. The daily double, winning the regular season in GCAC, winning the tournament, GCAC, tough matchup with Philander Smith. Get it done. 32 wins, 2 losses, 14-0 in conference play, 5 first place votes, 79 points. Your Dr. Cavil HBCU Mid-Major Division I Men's 2023 champions are none other than Tougaloo Bulldogs. I'm going to start with you, Professor Drew. What are your thoughts in terms of the top 5 on the men's side?
Hey, 1 and 2, I mean, you really can't argue with 1 and 2. 32 wins, 31 wins.
That's
I
crazy.
mean,
Yeah.
damn. You know, and then the team that won 31 went at plus 30. I mean, I don't think that can ever be duplicated. You going a plus 30 in a basketball season when it comes on a win.
Yeah, you talking about difference in 60 wins from 30 losses to 30 wins. That's ridiculous.
That's a plus 30. It's hard to do that in baseball, Dr. Cavil, where you have more games, let alone in basketball. Down 3 through, we'll just say 3 through 8 when you throw in the receiving votes.
I like it. Let's get into it.
Every one of those teams has an argument on why they should be high. Virginia Union, regular season champions, faded in the semifinals. Winston-Salem won the sprint. It was okay doing the marathon though, but once again, you had a team that caught lightning in the bottle. Virginia Union's argument, hey, we won the game in the tournament. All right, I could justify that over the conference champion because they did a little better in the national tournament. So now, does Xavier deserve to be over Winston-Salem? Well, Xavier had a decent marathon, and they won their conference tournament also. Splitting hairs once again. Splitting hairs right there. So we're gonna hold on that one right now. Let's go to 6 through 8. Miles finished tied for their division championship, won the conference championship, but went 0-2. If Miles is number 6, went 0-2 against the team that's in the number 8 spot, and then laid the egg in the national national tournament. And you got Philander Smith sitting in the number 7 spot, who lost the conference championship to your number 1 team in your poll, Dr. Cavil. All these teams have an argument over, I should be higher than this team, this team should be behind me. I mean, honestly, we splitting hairs. It's fine how it is, but when you give them that paper back, this is going to be when they come to office hours next week. These are going to be the arguments over why their grades should be improved, Dr. Cavil. I just wanted to warn you on some of those. 9 and 10, Claflin, Virginia State. Claflin, who wound up second in the CIAA, that would be the CIAA South. West Virginia State, who was like 3rd or 4th in the Mountain East Conference, which, according to them, is a tougher conference than the CIAA. And
I like the way you
last thing, and I'm turning.
That's pretty good.
Last thing before I turn it over to Charles, you don't even have the South Division champion anywhere on here in Fayetteville State, Dr. Cavil. I guess you just ran out of lines on the graphic. We're going to just leave right there. Go ahead, Charles.
Well, you know what, AD? I'm with you because my fulcrum team was Xavier. I didn't know where they were going to show up somewhere. And then I was like, do they need to be over Winston-Salem State? And then I started thinking about, wow, does Xavier need to be in front of Miles? So I was trying to figure it out. And then I'm taking a look. I'm like, wow, where's the SIAC? SIAC is not nowhere in the top 5. Okay. So the same way I looked at the CIAA with the women, I'm like, SIAC, they play some tough ball over there, but nobody in the top 5. It is what it is. Let me start here. Let me start by saying congratulations, Coach Eric Struthers, to get his opportunity. And 32 wins, that's a strong season. The pride of North Jackson, Tougaloo College. Shout out to all my friends from Tougaloo College. 30% of the attorneys in Mississippi probably come from Tougaloo College. So I definitely understand. So shout out to the Tougaloo Bulldogs. Tremendous season. So happy for Eric Struthers in terms of what he's done with that program and the run that they had in the postseason. I can't say enough about that, but you touched on it, AD. I mean, you talk about 32 wins, 31 teams. I can't speak enough about the NAIA teams. They really have showed themselves this season. 3 out of Dr. Bill's top 5 from NAIA. So kudos to the NAIA programs.
Hey, quick question, Charles. Quick question. Isn't this, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't this Struthers' first year as head at Tougaloo?
I believe this is his first or second year. Maybe it's second year. Yeah.
I'm trying. I can't remember when Billups retired. That's why.
Yeah, I'm struggling. I can't remember right now when Coach Billups retired, but to replace a legend like Thomas Billups and to take this program even to the next step, that says a lot. It says a lot.
No doubt about it. Great question. Great point. Usually I don't get into this, but I like what Edwin D. Moore said here. Grades are final. See you next semester. Man,
Well, somebody trying to get to that summer break already.
Man, somebody trying to got a summer vacation. They going in the villas of the Caribbean somewhere. Oh, St. Croix.
Here's the Hey, Dr. Cavil, do we have a grievance committee?
Not according to with D Moore. But yeah, usually we do have a grievance committee that hit one of these say, hey, y'all can grieve back in the fall.
Hey, how many people need to forgive this policy?
Exactly. Before we get into it and get to our next segment, is the MEAC considering the Virginia State University conference? Don't sleep on them in football this season. Henry Frazier is the former Purview A&M SWAC championship coach, leads them now, and he's loaded this spring on signing day. Also, the MEAC should also consider Albany State University. I like those two names that you put out there in terms of that.
What was
Obviously,
the first one? I didn't catch the first one.
Folks are going to be like, hold on, leave us alone. We're good down here in that. But if you would see some expansion, the fact that you get into Georgia, which is something, I've always said that both conferences need to consider. Savannah State obviously was that bridge for a short while in the MEAC between FAMU, Bethune-Cookman, and South Carolina State. Obviously, they went back to the SIAC to be able to sneak back in there and get Georgia, Virginia State, obviously strong in a lot of ways. I know they are considering several of these Division II HBCUs, and they're doing some unique things that I can't talk about right now in regards to how they're going to push forward. I don't see this in any recent news or anything that's coming shortly, but I know also Virginia State is comfortable in terms of what they're doing at the CIAA. It would take a lot to really make them move. And uniquely, shout out to Virginia State as they become first HBCU at any level to have both men's and women's lacrosse programs. And they're going to be getting in some soccer. So they're doing some good things. It'll be interesting. Strong president. So I can see why the interest is there. Certainly could see Virginia State making that move if they could decide that that's something they wanted to do. But I hadn't heard anything.
Both schools have enrollment.
Exactly.
That's enrollment. Both of them over 6,000.
Which is an important component. I'm glad you brought that up. You're exactly right. One of the things I always think about is in that enrollment number, but I hadn't heard anything imminent, particularly coming from the Virginia State side, that's something that they're looking at in the near future. I'll put it that way. With that being said, let's close out on this segment. Dr. Bill's inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We'll see you on the other side. We'll get a little ping of the bat, baseball. We'll talk about a couple of teams, Division II level, maybe one or two at the NIA level. And then we'll talk about some of these key SWAC matchups this weekend in regards to what that looks like. Talking to Drew, he'll tell you only really two teams you need to look at the SIC right now. We'll talk about those programs, and one of them happens to be one of the teams we just said. So we'll see what that looks like. Maybe it's both of the teams we just said in various ways. On the other side, Stickers will be right back after this break.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
So we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell them mama hungry.
The
human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KeaversVoice.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna loud, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Let's get into the little ping of the bat baseball. We'll give you some softball updates, some big things going on that side of it as well, but let's go into some mid-major, if you would, baseball. According to Black College Nines, as of 3/19/23, top 3 programs. I'll give you those top 3. Well, let me give you top 5. I want to give a little love to Virginia State, one of the lone programs in that part of the country that is playing baseball. So kudos to them, and they're actually playing some pretty good baseball right now. They sit in the 5 spot, Black College Nine. All of us voting at poll rankings. At number 4 is Florida Memorial University. We talked a little bit about them in terms of basketball coaching search are going up. Number 3, Talladega College is in the baseball business right now. At number 2, we'll get into the Division II side of it with Savannah State University and Albany State, who will be duking it out not only for the top of the poll rankings, but it looks like they'll be fighting it for not just the SIC, but particularly the east side of the SIC. What you think about, but obviously for baseball and SIC, they just do one division, one conference ranking, I should say. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like as they go down the stretch fighting things out. So let me ask AD Drew, what are your thoughts a little bit about particular Albany State, Savannah State baseball?
Let's see. Albany State, conference ranking. Number 2 in hitting. Number 1 in pitching. Number 1 in field. And you wonder why they're the number 1.
Pretty good mix.
And when you talk about hitting, they're number 2 in hitting. And I had it pulled up. I believe it might be Savannah who might be leading the conference in hitting at 341. And Miles is right behind them at 339. So it's not like there's a big gap between number 1 and number 2 as far as hitting goes. But when you talk about their team ERAs, check that. That's Benedict who's leading the conference in hitting at 341 and Albany State at 339. When you talk about their team ERA, Dr. Cavil, they have a 2.81 ERA. Number 2 in the conference, who is also number 2 in their poll, is at 4.4. So you're talking about almost two runs, a run and a half difference for the number 2 hitting team.
Some of those runs from the SWAC.
Yeah. And then they have a 9.6, and they got a 9.62 fielding percentage, Dr. Cavil. I mean, no wonder they're dominating, and they're not playing an all SIAC HBCU schedule. They are playing all different levels of competition. So they're getting a good mix with the non-conference schedule. Virginia State, they kind of and I don't want to disrespect Virginia State, but Virginia State's schedule might be a little fool's gold. And because I said that when they played another HBCU, Savannah State took 2 out of 3 against Virginia State earlier this year, back in February. And
I remember that kind of start things off.
Yeah, they've got a couple of the HBCU. They swept Claflin. Claflin is not really in the baseball business right now. They've got Lincoln, PA coming up this weekend, and then they've got 2 series against Bluefield coming up. I'm just highlighting the HBCU games on Virginia State's schedule. So they will get their good mix of HBCU. And it's tough for Virginia State just being a Division II independent. it's just out there. These classes is in a conference. Lincoln is in a conference. Bluefield State and Virginia State are true independents. Bluefield State's an independent now going to the CIAA, but Virginia State is just independent in baseball. They play whoever, whenever. They'll play D1, D2, NAIA, NCCAA. You know, they'll play a YMCA team if they need to get a game in. Who knows?
Hey, Drew, let me ask you this question, just your thoughts on that breakdown in terms of mid-major baseball programs. I do want to show some love for the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference with their now having baseball as a conference sport. Shout out to Xavier, obviously not in the Gulf Coast, but they also brought out baseball a couple years ago. Programs are not doing as well in terms of the program, but I still want to give them some love. They'll get a chance to turn around. These are some first, second-year programs. Oakwood is obviously 0-9. Tougaloo sitting at 3-20. Philander Smith at 5-12. Dillard at 6-22 to just brought baseball along with Oakwood. Rush College 7-12, bringing back baseball. Valley College sitting at 11-11. Kudos for those programs for getting in there and getting baseball. Continue to build those programs. But the question I wanted to ask for you is CIAA, if we can sneak this in there before we get into some of these key SWAC matchups at Division I level for Charles, is what would be your thoughts in terms of, we saw baseball programs, MEAC teams, if you would, schools, all other sports, but they took their baseball programs as an affiliate member, if you would, in the NEC. What were your thoughts about having these four, basically what will be CIAA baseball programs, having affiliate membership in the SIAC over some period of time in some divisional matchup, even if you had to go to pods? What would be your thoughts in terms of that? Is that something that you can see possibly happen in the SIAC at some point?
I could see with Bluefield State, who's going to the CIAA because of geography, being in there. Clafton, who's a former member of the SIAC, being in there. But as far as Lincoln and Virginia State, those would be prohibitive, just based upon geography. You know, Claflin would have some teams that are within, Claflin and Bluefield would have teams within their geography. You've got the South Carolina teams and the Atlanta teams, and even the Savannah State, who are within a 4-hour circle of both of those teams. So I can see those two coming in. But then the question becomes, how does the SIAC split up everything as far as games? So right now, everybody plays everybody in the SIAC. They actually get in 33 conference games. Everybody playing each other once in a 3-game series. So either you have to do some 2-game series if you want everybody to play each other, or you have to go back into the divisions, which I know the coaches voted to get away from divisions in the SIAC. I think this is the second year they've gone divisionless. That way they could just take the best 8 teams to the tournament, win or lose, which I think is a very good thing. Just before I jump off the SIAC, just a couple key matchups in the SIAC this weekend. Oh shoot, I'm on the wrong gear. Go ahead to the SWAC, and then I'll come back to the SIAC.
No problem. Let me get with some of these as you get that kind of update, and before we close out, we'll see if we have time to get that in there. I did want to go to Charles with some of the SWAC matchups. What stands out to you? What are you going to be looking at this weekend? Before you do that, let me tease out some of these. You have Hofstra at North Carolina A&T, just to provide that information in terms of those independents, if you would. Our 4 programs we just talked about that were formerly MEAC that are playing as independents in the NEC would be Fairleigh Dickinson at Coppin State. Delaware State is on the road at Wagner. Maryland Eastern Shore is on the road at Sacred Heart, and Norfolk State is on the road at Central Connecticut. With that being said, the SWAC matchups. FAMU is at the top after week 1, 3-0 sweep. Prairie View's at the top with another 3-0 sweep. Then it gets interesting with some of those games in the middle, or teams in the middle. But as they start to give up, when you talk about Black College Nines, your top programs in the poll rankings this week. Top 5 programs: Bethune-Cookman at 5. Number 4 is Alabama State. Number 3 is Texas Southern. At number 2, North Carolina A&T. At number 1 is Jackson State. They remain number 1. This is as 319 now. 319. Number 1, even though they lost 2 out of 3 to Alabama A&M. Interesting to see what people thought about that. What are your thoughts in terms of some baseball this weekend? Key matchups, so everybody can wrap their head around. What has your interest, Charles?
Well, key matchups is 1A and 1B to me. Alabama State goes to Jackson this weekend. Like you mentioned, Jackson State is still being the number 1 team in the Black College Nines. That's going to be a Donnybrook of a weekend series with Alabama State and Jackson State. 1B.
What kind of series?
Donnybrook series. Yeah. I love these type series. 1B for me though. Alabama A&M going to Tallahassee to take on Florida A&M. With Alabama A&M taking 2 of 3 from Jackson State, it opened my eyes to Alabama A&M. They go to Tallahassee this weekend. And get this, Dr. Cavil, they lead the league already in stolen bases. They have swiped 87 bags already on the season. 87 out of 109. That ain't bad at all.
They do not believe in standing still, do they?
No, that's an old Michael Robinson ball. You get on base and you're gone. Texas Southern, man, I tell you what, fun baseball. We talk about Texas Southern. And then Southern come to Houston this weekend. Southern's hadn't had the best start, if you will, when you're talking about a perennial championship program. So this will be a very interesting weekend to see if Southern kind of gets off the mat a little bit in terms of their pitching, especially to see what they can do in Houston this weekend with Texas Southern.
You're getting these midweek baseball games, so you're seeing a lot of baseball programs with some winning records, solid records, some big D1 wins. Texas Southern usually gets off a little slow, and you don't want to play them late as they get a hot. Right now, good baseball, pretty hot. Got some solid D1 wins, obviously mixing in as they traditionally with the NIA programs that really has a record in good position. So that's going to be fascinating. Before we close here, Drew, I did want to get some of those. Oh, go ahead, Charles, before I go to Drew to get some of these key matchups this week.
Well, just an addendum. You mentioned Prairie View started out 3-0 in conference play. I look for them to kind of carry that on this weekend. They got a great opportunity for a sweep against Arkansas Pine Bluff. So looking forward to Prairie View potentially going 6-0 in conference play thus far.
Yeah, you need to add these matchups up, add it up. You know, last year they got off to the big league and couldn't quite hold on. So you really want not to let one of these games fall when you have a team that may be struggling a little bit. You can put some room and space out before you play some of your strong competition in your division. So great points you make there. Drew, what are your thoughts in terms of some of the key matchups in the SIAC this week?
Just 3 key matchups to keep your eye on. Albany State, Benedict play each other in the 3-game series this weekend. Kentucky State, Spring Hill, which should be a good one. That's a 3-game series. Albany State travels to Benedict. Want to make sure I get that right. Kentucky State travels to Spring Hill, and probably the best one of the 3 is probably going to be Edward Waters traveling to Savannah State. Those are 3 key matchups to keep an eye on. The one thing about these matchups, check the schedules, because you have to see which one of these are double headers versus double header and a single versus an actual 2-3-game series. SIAC kind of does it both ways. Because of pitching, that's going to determine who wins these series 9 times out of 10, whether it's a 2-3 game or a double in a.
And let's take a look at the weather this weekend. It's supposed to be a little wet around the south in some parts this weekend. So we'll see if everybody can get their 3-game weekend series in.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Great baseball talk, man. Coming out of the World Championship Baseball Classic, getting into some Major League Baseball opening day, man. Y'all with y'all baseball knowledge. I have to give y'all talk about
Stohei and Trout.
A minus, baby. Can't let y'all get too big in the head. Let me change that from an A to A minus. Give y'all something to work on the next couple of weeks. Good stuff on the serious side. Appreciate y'all. That'll do it for us. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. as AD Drew jumps in here and gave us some love. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday, 6 o'clock Standard Time. Black College Sports Network is streaming the Morehouse Relay Saturday, so we want to make sure we get that news out here. BCSN is streaming the Morehouse Relay, so make sure you tune BCSN this weekend to get your track game up, as it is time for some track as well. Those times
relays.
You had the TSU release this past weekend. It was cold out there, but warm weather this weekend, and you can go down there to 90. Prairie View relays as well. Charles, thanks for making sure we got that in. Great point. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. That's DrKenyattaCavil. That's DrKenyattaCavil. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube is Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you tune in Brian and AD on Sunday as they have their monologue and give you great content, and they'll give you some updates on some of these baseball and sneak in some softball. They have their ranking out there too. We'll give them some love next Tuesday as they get it in there, as we did a little bit of a week as well. Obviously, theirs is not just a voting poll. It's actually done by the computer, so it gives you a different perspective of how you can look at the poll, and I always like that and appreciate about what they do in terms of that. With that being said, safe travels to Charles. Myself will be heading out of here tomorrow. We'll give you some updates. Want to again say kudos seriously to Professor Bishop, Charles Bishop, doctoral student, came down, showed out for Texas Southern University, Jackson State, obviously, representing Texas Southern University in the doctoral program. In the presentation he did, he had a lot of accolades, a lot of appreciation in terms of what he brought to the table. So I'd be remiss if I didn't give him the appropriate love that he deserved for doing that. Dream big, move forward. We will talk with you soon. No problem, Charles. We'll talk with you soon, Charles.
Of course.
Drew.
Lecture.
Dismiss.